Very shocked, hurt, angry, embarrassed.
Yo, what if everything you thought you knew about one of hip-hop's most famous families was built on a lie? This isn't just another internet rumor. This is the kind of story that doesn't just trend, it tears families apart. It all started with a cryptic move from 50 Cent, a post hinting at a so-called DNA report. At first, people laughed it off. Just another troll. Just another joke. But then the narrative shifted. Fast. Because suddenly, the name at the center of the storm wasn't just anyone. It was King Harris. And the question being asked, is he really T.I.'s son or not? Then came the twist that turned this from gossip into something darker. Whispers began linking the story to Floyd Mayweather Jr. a claim so explosive, it didn't just go viral, it detonated. But the real shock, the rumors didn't stay outside. They started pointing inside the family. All eyes turned to Deyjah Harris, with speculation claiming she didn't shut it down, that behind the scenes, emotions were cracking, and something wasn't adding up. No confirmations, no denials, just silence. And in the world of viral chaos, silence is never empty, that's loud, that it's dangerous. Because now, this isn't about rap beef anymore. This is about identity, about truth, about a young man possibly questioning everything he's ever known. And if even a fraction of this is real, then what we're looking at isn't just a scandal. It's a family breaking in real time.
I mean, honestly, I'm embarrassed, definitely, for sure. I'm trying to, push it in the back of my mind, so I'm really not.
The internet didn't just react to this story, it consumed it. What began as a cryptic jab from 50 Cent quickly mutated into something far more dangerous, something that didn't just target reputations, but bloodlines. At the center of it all stood T.I.'s family, a household that had spent years in the public eye, building an image of unity, loyalty, and control. But control is fragile, especially when the internet smells a secret. The post was vague. No documents, no receipts, just a few words hinting at a so-called DNA report. For most people, it should have ended there. Another troll move, another headline that fades in 24 hours. But this time, it didn't fade, because within minutes, screenshots started circulating. Blogs picked it up. Fan pages dissected every word. And then came the question that changed everything. What if this wasn't a joke? The name dragged into the storm wasn't just any celebrity child, it was King Harris. A young man who had grown up in front of cameras, watched by millions, presented to the world as T.I.'s son. And suddenly, that identity was being questioned. At first, it sounded absurd. But the internet doesn't run on logic, it runs on possibility. And then came the second name, Floyd Mayweather Jr. That single connection didn't just fuel the rumor, it exploded it. Within hours, timelines were flooded. Old interviews resurfaced. Forgotten clips were dragged back into the spotlight. Every glance, every past interaction, every rumor from years ago was suddenly being re-examined under a new lens. People weren't just watching anymore, they were investigating. Dates were compared, moments were analyzed, narratives were built. And like every viral controversy, the story started evolving beyond its origin. It wasn't just about a post anymore. It became a theory, a storyline, a puzzle that millions of strangers believed they could solve. But while the internet played detective, something else was happening. The silence. No immediate response from T.I.no statement from Tiny Harris. No denial from Mayweather.
But I've been doing that since a child, even with stuff with
I
him,
know, but it needs to not be something that you get accustomed to doing.
I typically don't handle problematic issues head on. I tend to hope that issues just go away.
And in a situation this explosive, silence doesn't calm anything down. It amplifies it, because when the people at the center of a storm don't speak, the internet speaks for them. And that's when the narrative took its darkest turn. The focus shifted inward. Rumors began suggesting that the tension wasn't just online, it was inside the house. That conversations were happening behind closed doors. That questions were being asked that had never been asked before. And then a new name entered the chaos. Deyjah Harris. According to swirling online speculation, she didn't publicly shut the rumor down. In fact, some corners of the internet claimed her alleged reactions, subtle, indirect, unconfirmed, only made the situation feel more real. No clear statements, no direct confirmations. Just enough ambiguity to keep the fire alive. And that's all the internet needs. Because uncertainty is more powerful than truth. IT stretches longer. IT hits harder. IT lingers. Meanwhile, at the center of it all, one question refused to disappear. What does this do to someone like King Harris? A young man whose entire life has been defined by a name, now watching that name being debated, dissected, and doubted by millions of strangers. This isn't a diss track. This isn't entertainment. This is something heavier. Because when identity becomes speculation, when family becomes content, when silence becomes suspicion, the damage doesn't stay online. It follows you. And as the noise kept growing louder, one thing became impossible to ignore. This was no longer just a rumor. It was a storm. And it was only getting started.
That he goes to the gynecologist with you to make sure that you're still a virgin?
Yeah, he goes with me. It's definitely been going on since probably 14 or 15.
Okay.
By the next morning, the situation didn't cool down, it escalated. What should have been a passing controversy had now turned into a full-scale digital wildfire. Every platform was flooded, every comment section was divided, and the names at the center, T.I., Tiny Harris, and King Harris, were trending for all the wrong reasons. But what pushed this story into darker territory wasn't just the rumor, it was the reaction. Because somewhere between the speculation and the silence, something shifted. The tone online changed. This wasn't curiosity anymore. It was interrogation. People weren't asking if the rumor was real. They were asking why nobody was denying it. And in that vacuum of answers, the internet did what it always does. It filled in the blanks. Old footage resurfaced at an alarming rate. Clips of past interviews, moments from reality shows, even random interactions were suddenly being dissected frame by frame. Every look, every pause, every sentence was twisted into evidence. And then came the deeper layer of the narrative. According to online speculation, the tension wasn't just public, it was personal. Rumors began circulating that King Harris had allegedly reacted emotionally behind the scenes. That he wasn't just seeing the headlines, he was feeling them. That conversations were happening privately that no one outside the family was supposed to hear. And yet, somehow, the internet claimed to know. Posts began appearing describing alleged emotional outbursts. Messages suggesting confusion, frustration, even anger. A young man trying to process a narrative that questioned the very foundation of who he is. No confirmations. No verified sources. Just a flood of claims, each one more intense than the last. And right in the middle of it all, another name refused to leave the conversation. Floyd Mayweather Jr. His silence became part of the story. No response. No statement. No denial. And somehow, that silence was interpreted in 100 different ways. For some, it meant nothing. For others, it meant everything. Because the internet doesn't wait for facts. It builds narratives out of absence. Meanwhile, attention began shifting towards someone who hadn't even spoken publicly.
They let him come in there.
Yeah, it's not like I could have said no. I couldn't have said no.
It would be totally different if this was King. If this was any of your brothers, it'd probably be like,
It's praise.
and I wonder why is it like that? Like men, like they praise their little boys to have sex.
Getting it.
But girls,
For real,
it's like they threaten to cut you off.
Right.
They threaten to. Why can't you be?
Deyjah Harris. Her name started trending alongside the controversy. Not because of something she clearly said, but because of what people believed she might have implied. That's how far the story had gone. Now, it wasn't about evidence. It wasn't about truth. It was about interpretation. Online forums and gossip pages started pushing claims that Deyjah's alleged reactions, private, indirect, unverified, added weight to the rumor. That her silence, her timing, even her lack of response somehow meant something deeper. And just like that, she was pulled into the storm. A daughter, a sister, now a central figure in a controversy she never confirmed. This is how viral chaos works. It doesn't need facts. It just needs momentum. And the momentum was unstoppable. Meanwhile, 50 Cent continued moving like nothing had happened, dropping subtle posts, throwing out cryptic captions, never confirming, never denying, just enough to keep the fire burning. Because once the internet takes over, you don't have to push anymore. It pushes itself. But beneath the noise, something far more uncomfortable was taking shape. This wasn't just about celebrity drama anymore.
I'm gonna be around him right now. I'll be a better parent. I mean, I'm not saying he's a bad parent.
No,
I'm not
we get
saying,
it. We get it.
but I'm just saying, like, when it comes to stuff like this, like, I'm just gonna be more connected mentally, emotionally, all of that. So, I don't know. I don't want to.
It was about a family being forced into a position where silence looked suspicious, and speaking out could make things worse. A no-win situation, because if they responded, they'd validate the conversation. If they stayed quiet, they'd feed it. And while millions debated theories, timelines, and possibilities, one reality remained unchanged. At the center of this storm was a young man watching his identity become a headline. Not a story, not a rumor, a headline. And headlines don't ask for permission. They spread, they stick, they shape perception. And as the second day of chaos unfolded, one thing became painfully clear. This situation wasn't slowing down. It was evolving. And whatever came next was going to hit even harder.
It's okay to cry. It is. We're not gonna judge you. We're your cousins. You know you're a human being. It's okay to be emotional.
By the third day, the story had already gone too far to be controlled. What started as a single post had now transformed into a full-blown narrative, one that the internet wasn't just following, it was writing in real time. Every hour brought a new angle, every refresh revealed a new theory, and every theory pushed the situation deeper into chaos. At the center of it all remained King Harris, not as a person anymore, but as a question mark the entire internet felt entitled to solve. And that's when the story crossed the line, because it stopped being about what happened and started becoming about what people believed happened. Online, threads began connecting dots that were never proven. old rumors involving Floyd Mayweather Jr. were dragged back into the spotlight, stitched together with the new DNA narrative as if they had always been part of the same story. Clips from years ago resurfaced again, this time viewed through a completely different lens. Moments that once meant nothing were now treated like hidden clues. This was an investigation. This was reconstruction, a brand new reality being built out of fragments. Meanwhile, inside the silence, the pressure only grew heavier. T.I., a man who had spent decades building his image as both an artist and a father, was now watching that image being dissected in ways no diss track could ever match. Because this wasn't about music. This was about legacy. For years, the Harris family had lived in front of the public. Their lives documented, their moments shared, their bond presented as unbreakable. Fans didn't just follow them, they felt connected to them. And now that connection had turned into something else. Scrutiny. Relentless. Unforgiving scrutiny. At the same time, Tiny Harris remained at the center of the storm without saying a word. Her silence had become one of the loudest elements of the entire situation. Because the internet doesn't interpret silence as privacy. It interprets it as mystery. And mystery invites speculation. Then there was Deyjah Harris, a name that had now been fully pulled into the narrative. Online discussions painted her as someone who allegedly knew more than she was saying, someone whose supposed reactions had fueled the fire rather than calming it. No verified proof, no confirmed statements. Yet somehow, her role in the story felt real to millions. That's the power of viral storytelling. It doesn't wait for truth. It creates its own version of it. And through it all, one person remained untouched by the weight of it. 50 Cent. Still posting, still watching, still letting the chaos unfold exactly as it was designed to. Because by now, the internet didn't need guidance. It was fully in control. Debates turned into arguments, arguments turned into sides, and sides turned into narratives that refused to back down. Some people believed the rumor had to be true, arguing that the silence, the timing, the reactions all pointed towards something hidden. Others pushed back just as hard, calling it one of the most reckless examples of internet speculation in recent memory. But neither side had what they needed most: proof. And yet, the story didn't slow down. Because in the world of viral controversy, proof is optional. Emotion is not. And this story had plenty of it. Confusion, anger, doubt, pain. All playing out in front of millions of people who would never feel the real consequences of what they were watching. But for the people inside the storm, the consequences were already real. Because once a question like this enters the public space, once identity itself becomes a debate, it doesn't just disappear when the trend fades. It lingers. It reshapes how people see you, how they talk about you, how they remember you. And maybe that's the most unsettling part of all this. Not whether the rumor was true, not whether it was false, but the fact that a single spark, one cryptic post, was enough to shake the foundation of an entire family in the eyes of the world. And as the noise slowly began to shift toward the next trending topic, one thing remained unresolved. The question. Still hanging, still unanswered. And maybe that's exactly how the internet likes it. And just like that, the internet moves on. But the damage? That doesn't disappear with a new trending topic. Because what just happened wasn't just another viral moment. It was a full-scale collision between rumor, identity, and a family's reality, played out in front of millions. One post turned into a theory. That theory turned into belief. And that belief, it spread faster than any truth ever could. Now think about it. No confirmed DNA report, no official statement, no clear answers. And yet, the narrative already feels real to people watching. That's the power of this kind of chaos. It doesn't need proof. IT feeds on silence. IT grows through speculation. And right now, the silence surrounding T.I., Tiny Harris, and everyone connected to this story is only making the questions louder. Because if there's nothing to hide, why hasn't this been shut down? And if there is something deeper beneath all of this, then what we've seen so far might only be the beginning. This isn't just gossip anymore. This is a story that has already reshaped how people look at King Harris, and once that perception changes, it doesn't go back easily. So now it's your turn. Do you think this is just another ruthless internet game pushed too far? Or is there a truth here that hasn't been revealed yet? Because one thing is certain, if the truth ever drops, it won't just trend, it will explode.